Peter Navarro, economist and Trump policy advisor, with us now, as well as Bernard Whitman, a former Clinton pollster and author of 52 Reasons to Vote for Hillary. Gentlemen, thank you both for being here.
Good morning.
Hey, Christy.
Good morning. So, Peter, I'd like to start with you, if I could. Trump, we know, could release charitable contributions. He could release his income. He could release his tax rate. He could release something that might at least tamp down some of these questions. Wouldn't that put it to rest without having to release the full IRS or the full tax rate?
Let me ask you a question, Christy. Let me ask you a question. Give me an honest answer to this. Do you think Tim and Hillary released their tax returns on Friday to divert attention from corruption in the Clinton Foundation and their failed economic plan?
I don't know. I'm not in their head. I don't work for their campaign.
You don't
I don't
know?
have any.
I mean,
but
here's the thing. This election is becoming a battle over who controls the news cycle rather than a discussion over the serious issues facing this country. That's a fair point, is it not?
To release your
Is that not a fair
returns.
point?
I'm sorry?
Well, here's the difference between Donald Trump and all the other presidential candidates that have run in the last 50 years. He's self-funding his campaign. That's very different. What does that mean? It means a couple of things. It means that he's not beholden to the special interests that are paying Bill Clinton $10,000 a minute.
But that's fine, then why not release some numbers?
Okay?
Release anything.
Hear me out.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Hear me out. The second part of it is, and I know this from personal political experience, what Cain and Clinton are trying to do is have him release his tax returns so they find out how much money he has and thereby strategically understand how much money he can spend through November. That's what's going on here, besides all of the bad press that you guys want to give him for all of this. But I would plead with the journalists here that let's talk about the economy. We've got over 20 million people that can't find a good job at a decent wage. We haven't seen our income rise for 15 years. We've got the worst recovery since since World War II. And all the news cycle is doing is talking about things that the American people really don't care about.
But Peter,
the tax thing. Here's the most important.
Go ahead.
Here's the most important thing about the tax thing. Okay, we got the tax plans of the two candidates released this week. That's more important than tax returns being released. And what do we know? We know Hillary Clinton wants to raise taxes and increase government spending to stimulate the economy. We know Donald Trump wants to cut taxes and increase business investment and trade to stimulate the economy. Now, there's a clear choice, and there's an interesting conversation to have there.
Please.
Go ahead, Bernard. Go ahead.
Who's the voice here?
Peter, please. Let's call a spade a spade. Christy, this is beyond obvious. The American people, 2/3 of the American people, 67%, want the presidential candidates to release their tax returns. 80% of voters say if someone does not release their tax returns, it's likely they have something significant to hide. Half of Donald Trump's supporters want him to release their tax returns. So why isn't he? The answer is obvious. He's obviously hiding something. What could he possibly be hiding? Well, perhaps he's not as rich as he actually claims to be. Perhaps he actually pays little or even no taxes. Actually, he didn't pay any taxes for a number of years back in the 70s and 80s. Perhaps his charitable contributions are very low or maybe zero. Or perhaps he gets a lot of income or is terribly indebted to Russian businesses and Russian oligarchs.
Gentlemen, wait a minute, please. We can't hear anybody over anybody else, but please let me get in here for a second.
You went on a diatribe, so let me talk. Okay? This actually started 40 years ago. Every single presidential candidate for 43 years has released their tax returns, starting, by the way, with Richard Nixon, who was under audit when he released his tax returns.
So Bernard and Peter, please wait just one moment, because what this comes down to is transparency. CNN just recently had a poll about who is honest and trustworthy. Take a look at what it shows. 64% of the people believe both Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump are not honest or trustworthy. And Donald Trump, if we can play this out, I think we have the soundbite here. Donald Trump made this, in a sense, the release of tax records, part of the conversation. Let's listen to what he had to say a short while ago.
So, if you're running, at a minimum, probably you're going to have to show your returns.
But if you didn't see the tax returns, you'd think there's almost like something wrong. What's wrong?
Peter, those are his own words. This is why it's important. It's about transparency. It's about honesty. And this is a characteristic both of these candidates are solely and wholly deficit in. So if you know that releasing something would help, why wouldn't you?
I don't know how many times I can tell you that the reason why this conversation is taking place right now is because Tim and Hillary threw chum in the water to the journalists on Friday to divert their attention, and everybody jumped onto it. So we're not talking about the real story of the week, which was the 2 economic plans. And second of all, again from personal experience, Donald Trump, they're trying to figure out how much money he has to spend on the election through November. Strategically, it would be a bad move for him to release those returns. It's the art of the deal, and he's not a stupid man. He's a smart man. Now, the other part of that equation, but wait, the other part of the equation, well, the other part of the
I've got a
equation
minute
is
left, and I want to give Bernard a chance.
The Clinton Foundation, the Clinton Initiative, and all that corruption selling pay-to-play, whether it's trade policy.
I want to give Bernard a chance to respond.
Peter, calm down. Stop spinning this. The answer is obvious.
And if you actually,
Peter,
nobody can hear anything if everybody's talking. Bernard, go ahead. You have the last word.
The fact is, Richard Nixon, under audit, released his tax returns and famously said, the people have a right to know if their president's a crook. Well, I'm not a crook. Well, guess what? He actually ended up owing $500,000 in 1973 as a result of that audit, which in today's dollars would be $2.5 million. He was a crook, and Donald Trump probably is too.
All right. Peter Navarro, Bernard Whitman.
Whoa.
Thank you so much for the very spirited conversation. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care.